If Christ is king, how should the Christian consider the kingdoms of this world? What does the Bible teach us about human authority and what it means to love our neighbors and our enemies? Before we render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, let's know what it means to render unto God what is God's. This is the Biblical Anarchy Podcast, the modern prophetic voice against war and empire.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast, a project of the Libertarian Christian Institute and part of the Christians for Liberty Network. This week and every week on Biblical Anarchy, we seek to live counterculture to the empire of man and to instead seek the kingdom of God by unpacking what the Bible teaches about government, authority, and human relationships. I'm your host, Jacob Winograd. So for today's episode, I'm going to be playing for you a clip from a conversation I had about a month ago with Michael Leibowitz, who is the host of the Rational Egoist podcast. Michael is a objectivist libertarian. Objectivism is a philosophy that was developed by Ayn Rand. A lot of people will often just associate libertarianism with Ayn Rand, even though she didn't really call herself a libertarian. And objectivism, although it certainly has overlap with libertarianism, it's not exactly the same thing. Michael is an atheist, and we interact sometimes on social media and have various disagreements. And so we decided to have a fun conversation where we explored some of the different areas where we disagree, and maybe the general theme of the conversation being if Christianity is a useful or compatible moral and philosophical framework by which to pursue or create a free society compared to that of atheism or objectivism or anything else. So it was a bit of a weird conversation, and at certain times I was getting, I wouldn't say frustrated, but maybe a little bit exacerbated because it, and I don't attribute any bad faith to Michael. I actually, like him and as a person, and had fun in the conversation. And so I don't think anything he was doing was some sort of malicious intent. But it was sort of like we were having two conversations at once, it was sort of hard to do because I was having to play the role of a Christian apologist in terms of like providing defenses for the faith being A, true, and B, for the scriptures being logically consistent, and then also trying to make the arguments that I'm used to making, which is like, okay, if Christianity is true, what does it teach? And you kind of, the clip I'll play will sort of highlight some of this, because we'll get into, I want to play a clip where we started out by talking about the Old Testament, and then we've transition to talking about the New Testament. And so I'm going to pick up in the middle of the conversation where we start talking about the New Testament, and we hear some of Michael's criticisms of it. We hear my defenses, go back and forth for a little bit. And then, like always, if you like what you hear and you want to hear more, you can listen to the full extended conversation with the link that'll be in the description. It'll be part of you can go find it on YouTube under the live streams, or if you are the audio listener, just as a reminder that my full interviews will be on the LCI Green Room feed, which if you're not subscribed to that already, I'll have a link in the description that you can go subscribe to that. Because again, a lot of my live streams and long form interviews are now going to be on and through the Libertarian Christian Institute Green Room. I have another one coming up there with Stephen Wolf, follow up to the one that we had few months ago, so good idea to go over and check that out, because you'll get it there. You'll get all my interviews on the Biblical Anarchy podcast feed in terms of I'll kind of always be grabbing the best snippets and providing them for you, but if you want to listen to the full ones right when they come out, subscribing to the Green Room is the way to go. Or if you're on YouTube, just make sure you're subscribed, and as always, if you're wherever you're watching and you guys have been doing this, and I appreciate it. And I just want to, really stress that we've had a lot of growth on the YouTube side, and I really appreciate it. You guys have been great with giving thumbs ups and comments, which help boost the videos and the algorithms. I'd love if more of you on the audio side could please, for both here on the Biblical Anarchy Podcast and the LCI Green Room feed, if you guys could leave a review, especially written reviews. That really helps us on Apple and Spotify to get our podcast feeds higher up in the search results in people's suggested boxes. So, but yeah, that's all I have for you guys here in the introduction. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Michael. And here it is. The stuff that we might want to focus on then is, like, even if Christianity was true and you had like all the answers that you needed to be satisfied with the things that you're concerned with, but then you were like, okay, but now is it compatible with libertarianism? Because that might be
I would frame it a little differently. And
Sure.
This is why I wouldn't say compatible with libertarianism, only because libertarianism has so many different branches and different meanings. What I would say, and it's probably in par, right in line with what you mean by libertarianism, is a capitalist society, a free society, a society that respects individual rights of life, liberty, and property. The property that you can gain, not that you have a right.
We can describe it that
property.
Way. Yeah.
That's how I would describe it. So, capitalism is ultimately a system for living on Earth. It's a profit system. It requires the use of reason. It requires effort, energy, time, the desire to make things better for oneself. Whereas the New Testament is flagrantly anti-life and anti this world. And it's anti-money, it's anti-profit. So I don't see how it could ever form the basis for a capitalist society.
Okay, well, we can handle those. Before I enter that, there was a guy who dropped some super chats, and I feel rude for not reading some of those just quickly here. He said, Christians cannot be pro-government since governments are ruled more or less by the evil one. There are many passages where Satan's referred to as the ruler of this world. Hans Hoppe, the NAP, agrees with most of the 10 Commandments. I would agree with that. Catholics were the first abolitionists. So were Quakers and a lot of other Christians as well. Nothing is so repugnant to human nature as slavery. Slavery is horrible. God rescued the Israelites from slavery, I would say. So that's something to consider too. Appreciate the super chats. Don Juan Plagius 0. I don't even know what that's referring to. That's an interesting name. But yeah, appreciate the super chats. All right, so I don't see where the New Testament is anti-property and anti-profit. I'd be curious to know where you're pulling that from, because I could point to, for example, passages like Matthew 20, the parable of the workers in the vineyard, that explicitly say that the property owner has the right to do with his property whatever he sees as fit, that he has the final say, that he's not even obligated to pay some. Sorry, I didn't silence my phone. He's not obligated to pay some sort of like the parable of the workers in the parable of the workers in the vineyard. Just to summarize it, there's this guy who keeps going out different parts of the day and hiring more workers to try to finish the job. And at the end of the day, he pays them all the same wage, even the ones that came just at the very end. And of course, the people at the beginning get upset, like, what the heck? That's not fair. And he's like, well, this is what we agreed to. Like, you agreed to a denarius, or might have been 10 denarius or whatever. And they agreed to whatever is fair. And I'm deciding to be generous. Who are you to complain? Like, this is what you agreed to. So I don't know. I mean, that's one example. I'd like to hear where you think the Bible, where the New Testament is anti-profit and property.
Profit necessarily means an increase in what one has, right? Necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay. Hebrews 13:5. Keep your lives free from the love of money and be satisfied with what you have. That's one. Matthew 19:24. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. Matthew 6:24. You cannot serve God and money. Luke 12:15. Take care and be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Timothy 3:2. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boasters, proud, verbally abusive, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, and then it goes on and on. for the love of money is the root of all evil. These are all anti-money, anti-profit texts. Well,
I think they're just anti the love of money, meaning like to idolize it, to be overly infatuated with money as if it's the ultimate. So I mean, the Christian might say that you should live for more than just making as much money as possible, and that shouldn't be your number one goal. But that isn't to say that it's wrong to seek a profit. Actually, you also have the parable of the talents, where the master gets mad at the worker who doesn't try to grow the talents that he was given. So
I agree, and that there's certainly, in my view, contradictions between that and saying be satisfied with what you have. But there's also things against human ambition. Be completely humble and gentle. God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. That is why
you said, what's wrong with humility? I don't understand.
I'll get to that in 1 second, but there's two very good things here that I want to just get to, and then we'll get into the humility stuff. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, I am strong. 2 Corinthians 12:10, Philippians 2:3-4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others. That is blatantly anti-self. I mean, it says that I am supposed to put others above myself. Profit necessarily means putting myself above others. I'm looking to increase what I have.
The best way in a market to grow profit is to serve your customers as well as you can. The market rewards you for...
No, sir. Well, then why wouldn't you just create stuff and give it to them? If I'm putting them above myself.
Well, no, because then you won't be... Because scarcity. Because if you just give things away for free, you won't be able to keep creating more. So in order to actually maximize the extent to which you give to people... to maximize the extent to which you contribute to the good of your neighbors, you need to actually, that this is the importance of the profit motive, is that the profit motive, we understand as, libertarian believers in free markets, we understand that the profit is a gauge by which you can understand if you're meeting the demand of the market or not. And the profit then drives the marketeers to produce that which people need. And so there's nothing that's being taught there that in any of the passages you brought up that says that is a bad thing to pursue. It's just saying that you should pursue that in light, to use that as a means towards goods and not just as a means for accumulating wealth for the sake of the love of wealth.
Well, Jacob, these are quotations that say, be humble, deny yourself, live for other people, be satisfied with what you have. Loving money is evil. This is not a pro-capitalist doctrine that's being taught here. If I'm denying myself, I'm a living being with the individual right to life and liberty. To tell me that I have to deny myself, I mean, then it says, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children, cannot be my disciple. This is explicitly deny myself, deny my values, deny the things that make my life worth living. There's numerous passages always right here. 1 John 2:15-17. Do not love the world or the things in the world. Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
All of this refers to that you should not live with in a materialist sense.
But we live in a material world. That's why I'm saying it's anti this world. It's anti-self.
No, but
deny myself.
Hold on. But you're kind of creating a false dichotomy where the Bible says do not value those things above God. That doesn't mean you absolutely have to hate those things and actually you should oppose those things. Like that doesn't necessarily follow that because the Bible says that you shouldn't love money, that you should consider the needs of other people, that
Jacob.
you should deny yourself. And the passage is about denying yourself, referred to not living for yourself before living for God, which maybe you don't accept that.
No. That's
Christian.
not just what it says. It says you need to live for other people. Put other people above yourself.
But I would say you can't.
And it also tells you.
It
tells
doesn't
you
say
to
that.
hate your father and mother, Jacob.
Well,
hate your father, mother, wife, and children.
Yeah, that passage is clearly Jesus employing hyperbole. And actually, this is very common throughout the entire Bible, where hate just means to love less. This is including in Romans 9, including in
here comes the problem.
Esau. There's the passage that says
right
Esau I hated, whereas Jacob I loved. But God didn't actually hate Esau; He just favored Jacob. So that's what all these things mean.
So, and here comes part of the problem. When we talk contradictions, we say, well, it would have to be contradictions because they're human creations. The words, well, they don't really mean what the words mean because they're engaging in hyperbole. When it says do not love the world or the things in the world, and it says deny yourself, and it says hate your mother, your brother, and all this, do not be conformed to this world. And then the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the poor in spirit, the mourners, the meek, the persecuted, all the lowly, not the creators, not the money makers, not the productive, the lowly. Give up yourself, deny yourself. There's also thought sins about how if you even have adultery in your mind, that's a sin. These things are not a pro-life orientation. And by the way, let's even say for the sake of argument that you're absolutely correct, that this is hyperbole, that you have to get into, what'd you call it, the covenant?
Covenant. Well, that wouldn't be explained by covenant theology. That's
but I'm
understanding literary styles.
But different things. You have to delve into different types of apologetics and this here, that here. Is that going to form the basis of a free society where I have to contradict the evidence of what I'm reading and what I'm seeing and what words naturally mean, or not naturally, but normally mean, in order to form the basis of a free society? This has nothing to do with whether it's good to be a Christian or not. If you being a Christian, if you want to be a Christian, or if you think it's the truth, that's one thing. But to say that Christianity is not hostile to materialism, is not hostile to individual life, is
Can you
not
define
hostile.
Materialism for me? Because maybe
I wish I didn't use. I actually wish I didn't use the word materialism. It kind of just flowed out because it does mean different things to different people. When I just used it, I simply mean living in the material world, which is where we live. And the New Testament is blatantly hostile to enjoying this world,
we're not
living in this world, and to profiting in this world. And there's a litany of quotes. And I had to be honest, cut myself short because there's just so many of them.
Can you find me one passage that actually says it is wrong to profit from any of your economic endeavors?
Well, you're not going. If you're looking for me to give you the exact quote that says "do not profit," then no, you're not going to find that. But you will find things about. But you will find where it says delight in weakness, insults, and hardships. Do nothing
for the
out
sake
of
Christ.
ambition.
For the sake, it means if you're
you're
persecuted,
supposed to live for Christ, Jacob.
Right. So if you live for Christ and you're persecuted for that, you're supposed to take that as a blessing.
It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into heaven. Be on guard against all covetousness. You cannot serve God and money. And then this is the key. Be satisfied with what you have. When you combine all these together, and don't just rip them out of context, combine them all together with hate the world, follow Christ, take up your cross, suffer, deny yourself. All these things together are anti-profit. They're anti this world. Give up the world for the sake of God. Hate your mother, your father. I mean, come on. These things are not pro-capitalist doctrines.
I disagree. I think I've given you answers, and you just, I think you're dismissing them as, well, they're just contradictions.
Well, they are contradictions, but they're also parables. The parable of the talents is a parable. So, I mean, and the problem then gets into, well, what's a parable? What's meant to be good or bad? But they are contradictions.
I would disagree. There's also, I'm trying to look it up here quick. There's the passage that says that he who does not provide for his family is worse than the, was it Gentile or something like that? So let me look it up here. Passage.
Worse than the Gentile?
Yeah. Well, or tax collector. It's one of those. Yeah. provide for his family. It's worse.
Mhm.
1 Timothy 5:8. But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, especially for the members of his household, he is denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Sorry, not worse than the Gentile, but that was just a guess because he often there's many times in the New Testament where he's like, hey, listen, even that's worse than even what the Gentiles do, or the tax collectors, which you should at least appreciate that Jesus and the New Testament scriptures are very hostile towards the tax collectors. I mean, give us credit for that.
Well, maybe so, but he also says to pay your taxes, render unto Caesar that which belongs to Caesar.
Let's get into that. We have about 15 to 30 minutes left here. And again, to wrap a bow up on this last portion here. Yeah, I don't think that the passages you brought up say that you cannot earn money and that profit is inherently bad. It just all those things are part of a teaching about that money should not be the ultimate good in your life. That money should be a means for achieving goods, but not just a good in and of itself. It shouldn't be the thing you worship. It shouldn't be the thing by which you define your purpose or your meaning or your happiness in. And
I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Well, I would say and that is pretty much the consistent Christian teaching, even if you don't accept it because you're not a Christian, that's fine. But that is generally the Christian teaching on these things. Christianity on the whole throughout most of history has not been anti-private property and capitalistic. And I would even say you could just apply some logic to this to be like, which is what I was trying to say before. Like, if you're supposed to live for God and for others, now you should be satisfied with like what you ultimately end up with. You shouldn't be making money to try to put yourself ahead, but it's not wrong to make money to pursue the things that God calls us to pursue. Like, I should be so for example, we're told that which we do to the least of these, we've done unto Christ, right? And we're told that true religion is to provide for the widow and the poor and the orphan. Well, you can't provide for these people and you can't serve them if you don't have anything by which to do those things. You can't actually do the things that Christ has told us to do in the world. And even Paul says that I don't want you to be removed from the world, but to be in it, because we're actually called as Christians to be a blessing to the nations. And so the way that we do that, like, we do have to make money. We have to engage in enterprise and free markets and the profit motive and all this. Those are the means by which that we are able to do those. And you and I both know that if it's anything but that, it's not going to generate. It's going to be degenerative. It's going to be, just distributing what already exists, redistributing it till it runs out. And then that creates more net harm. So even just like thinking about it logically, the only way to actually uphold all of those commandments and teachings is to employ a free market system, because anything else you would just not be able to.
But let me juxtapose for the sake of clarity what I mean here. If you juxtapose what I just read to you, all those quotes from the New Testament, the example of Jesus, who lived in poverty, the way he acted, washing his disciples' feet, give this world, he sacrificed his own life. If you compare all that, now let me tell you what the objectivist virtues are, without having to validate the entire objectivist system, because we simply don't have time for that. Productiveness. First of all, the three fundamental values in objectivism are reason, purpose, and self-esteem. The use of the human mind, the love of self, and having a purpose in life, all very pro-capitalism. Then if you look at productiveness as one of the virtues, you must produce justice, give to people that which they deserve, integrity, be loyal to your moral code, a rational moral code, independence. Independent thought is vital for creation, for production. So if you pride, seeking out moral perfection according to the virtues and values in the objectivist system, so you're always seeking, trying to be your best, to do your best. If you juxtapose that with Christianity and the quotes I just read to you and the example of Jesus's life, and you say, well, which would form a better bedrock for a capitalist society, one in which human beings get to live for themselves, live in prosperity, do their best and be their best, or a world in which they're counseled to hate the world, hate their mother, hate their brother, hate their sister, give up all values, live for other people and deny themselves, but they can produce enough so that they can provide to other people, which is going to form the better basis for a capitalist society. It's not even close.
So I don't think objectivism is inherently like evil or bad. Although I know objectivism hates religion. I don't necessarily find that much objectionable to like Rand's definition of rational self-interest. I don't even think that's inherently no, and I know that parts of what Rand teaches in terms of the valuing of the self above all else is at odds with Christianity. But I don't think Christianity is saying that you should, be like, it's not diametrically opposed to that. It's just placing other things, higher than the self. But that you also do have to act in rational self. And I would even say, because like even Rand makes this argument, right? That like, because Rand would often come under criticism for like, well, what about like relationships? And she'd be like, oh, well, when I love someone and I do things like that is in like my rational self-interest. And she would, define that as like, I get pleasure from that.
Sure,
that's even compatible with Christianity. Piper describes it. Well, Piper, let me give you the explanation here, and then you can let me know what you think. Piper describes the Christian lifestyle as he uses a kind of provocative label. He calls it Christian hedonism, because he says that we actually he says that we as Christians, we find our pleasure and because we have a meaning, we have a purpose through serving serving Christ and serving something greater than ourselves, and we get pleasure from that. And so, in the same way that Rand can love her husband or her family and stuff, and derive pleasure from that, and so then that's in accordance with her rational self-interest. I'm rationally self-interested because of my Christian convictions and my values to do these things, not because it's like a burden for me, because I genuinely want to do them, because I actually get immense joy from serving people, and in the sense of like, helping those less fortunate than me, and also from being productive economically so that I have the resources and economic freedom to do more on behalf of what Christ has commanded me to do. So I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but I also just don't feel like they're in. So anyway, I guess to also get to the heart of what you said, which one would be better? It's not like I'm saying objectivism would necessarily be bad. Although I think that the things that objectivism leads out would lead to other problems. So like, would objectivism tend towards private property and capitalism? Well, kind of by definition, yeah. Kind of baked into the system, right? Objectivism and Rand's whole philosophy includes capitalism. So it's almost close to a tautology. It's like, well, if we had would a capitalist society be good for capitalism? It's like, well, yeah. But the things that are left out would be bad for society in other ways. And so I just reject the claims you made that Christianity is in staunch opposition to capitalism. It's like, no, I think it is completely compatible, and it includes other goods and virtues that I think are very important for society that I don't think are present in objectivism.
Well, it's clear, and I don't think you even disagreed, that Christianity requires you to live for other people. That's incompatible with the nature of what it means to be human. But you wanted to get to the other stuff. If you want to stay on this, we can. But I kind of wanted to just to get to the Romans 13, 1 and 2. We can do that. The deference to government. So the passage in Romans 13, 1 and 2 says, "Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God, the powers that are ordained by God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. Jesus says to Pilate, thou couldst have no power at all against me except it were given from above. And of course, the aforementioned passage, render unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's. Now, the problem is these are deference to government, but it goes right with the argument that you shouldn't live for this world, that the focus should be on the next world. So you just obey the government, do what it says, pay your taxes. In
none of those passages mean those things.
No, but
let's do them one. Let's do one.
Let's do Romans.
Let's do Romans 13. All right. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. Again, you can listen to the full episode if you click the link in the description. But yeah, fun conversation. It's always fun to engage people you disagree with, and I certainly don't mind. I'm not first and foremost a Christian apologist. I focus more on political philosophy from a Christian perspective, but I'm familiar enough with Christian apologetics, and it's a hobby of mine to study that I thought I did a pretty good job trying to sort of juggle the different objections that were being thrown my way. And as always with Christians, we're told to be prepared to make a defense, and I felt like I was able to do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and that's all we have for you. So we will talk with you again next week. Till then, live at peace, live for Christ.
The Biblical Anarchy Podcast is a part of the Christians for Liberty Network, a project of the Libertarian Christian Institute. If you love this podcast, it helps us reach more with a message of freedom when you rate and review us on your favorite podcast apps and share with others. If you want to support the production of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast, please consider donating to the Libertarian Christian Institute at biblicalanarchypodcast.com, where you can also sign up to receive special announcements and resources related to biblical anarchy. Thanks for tuning in.